So a pretty quick and really exciting piece of news that I wanted to discuss for you guys really fast today. Over this past weekend, many of you may know that Disney held their D23 annual convention event. One of the things that they did there, one of the highlights, of course, going into the show, was going to be their Lucasfilm panel where they were going to discuss all things Star Wars, Episode 7, what's happening with Rogue One, the future of some of the Star Wars franchise stuff. They laid out some information on Episodes 8 and 9, which is, oh my god, so exciting. Really great time to be a Star Wars fan. One of the things that they showed off in the gaming world was that there are going to be 2 limited edition PlayStation 4 bundles that are going to be black Darth Vader themed PlayStation 4s with a Darth Vader branding of him and the helmet on the system itself and some sort of color scheme for the controller that they're billing as some sort of Darth Vader kind of idea. And I don't really know what that means, but I mean, whatever. It's cool. It's a limited edition. It's Star Wars. It's Darth Vader. That's all great. Now, what do these systems contain? Well, the main game that each one contains, and the one thing that differentiates the 2 boxes, is going to be one comes with Star Wars Battlefront 3, the other comes with Disney Infinity 3.0, and some very specific Star Wars characters, whatever. I don't know what the little figures are, but Star Wars figurines, that are going to work with that game, because we know that Disney Infinity has a huge Star Wars element going into it. And that's pretty cool. I think it's even the limited edition Force Awakens Star Wars figures coming with that box, but I don't really know or care because that's not the one I'm interested in. The one with Battlefront 3 I think is the coolest, but regardless, they're making a Darth Vader themed PS4 for a couple of different people who might be interested in those 2 games. Now, the other thing that each one comes with, and I gotta tell you, as somebody who's going to be pre-ordering this as soon as it becomes available, even though I already have a PS4, what has really made me excited about these isn't as much the Darth Vader on the PS4. It isn't the Battlefront 3 that's going to come with the version that I want. It's the inclusion of 4 other really cool remade old Star Wars games. And what games are they, that you might ask? Well, I'll tell you. It's Super Star Wars, Star Wars Racer Revenge, Star Wars Jedi Starfighter, and my absolute favorite, and the game that I am crapping my pants over, Star Wars Bounty Hunter. Now, all of these games are being touched up and remade with newer graphics. I don't know what that's going to mean for Super Star Wars. Each of these games, I'll go over them real quick for you. Super Star Wars is basically a Star Wars Episode 4 game that was made for the Super Nintendo way back in the day. It was like 1994, 1992, something like that. So before the special editions and before the prequels. So at that point, there was no other kind of Star Wars things happening. It was just known as really Star Wars A New Hope at the time, Episode 4 A New Hope. And so that is an amazing 2D platformer on the Super Nintendo from the 16-bit days. Very, very cool that they have that included. Star Wars Racer Revenge was a semi-mediocre attempt at recreating the brilliance that was the original Star Wars Pod Racer that came out right after The Phantom Menace did, which was released on the Nintendo 64 and the Dreamcast. And most people remember that game as being freaking badass. We lost so much time to that game. And Racer Revenge was a PlayStation 2 kind of sequel to that. Star Wars Jedi Starfighter, also released on the PlayStation 2. It was featuring what was at that time the brand new Jedi Starfighter that Obi-Wan Kenobi was using in Attack of the Clones. Just basically an aerial battle game, kind of trying to be Rogue Squadron. Definitely not as good as the Rogue Squadron games, but still a fine space battle Star Wars game. And you're using that Starfighter that Obi-Wan Kenobi uses. And obviously, the last one. This is like the number one reason I want to spend another $400 freaking dollars on a PlayStation 4. Although the information is going to change in a minute. Star Wars Bounty Hunter, released for the GameCube and PlayStation 2 in 2002, right when Attack of the Clones came out, featuring my main man Jango Fett. Awesome freaking adventure game, being played as one of the most amazing bounty hunters in history. One of the best bounty hunters in the Star Wars lore. The father, quote unquote, if you want to call him, of Boba Fett. Such an amazing game where you literally play as Jango Fett. And you have you can use a scanner and you're hired to get bounties and you go around all these different places and you capture people and you're just fighting waves of enemies using his missile pack, his jetpack, his flamethrower. All these cool things, man. It was a really, really great Star Wars game at the time that it came out for the 6th generation for, GameCube and PS2. And there's so much I love about that game. It's really, really difficult. I will say that. Probably my favorite thing, other than just playing as Jango Fett, is the fact that you spend a lot of time on Coruscant in that game. It's like the only game, Well, I guess with the Old Republic, the MMO, it's a little bit different because you do spend time on Coruscant there. But especially at this time in 2002, spending so much time on Coruscant was really fascinating to me. Coruscant might even be my favorite location in all of Star Wars lore. It's such a fascinating place. It's the capital of the Galactic Republic, and then, of course, the Empire moving forward. It's a huge planet that's just a big city. It looked great in The Phantom Menace, but we didn't really get to see much of it. What was cool about Attack of the Clones as a movie is that we actually had a couple scenes in the beginning with Anakin and Obi-Wan chasing Zam Wesell through some of the streets and going into a local bar, kind of like a cantina, on the streets of Coruscant, and seeing some of that, even near the end, too, when Count Dooku meets up with Palpatine, too, at the end. They're kind of in some different areas in Coruscant, and I just thought that was so cool. I was like, oh my god, I want to get to know more of Coruscant. I want to see more of Coruscant. And then here comes this game featuring one of my all-time favorite characters in one of my all-time favorite locations, Coruscant. So that's my long-winded speech about why Bounty Hunter is so amazing to me. And all of these games, like I said, are getting touched up. They're getting HD remasters, basically. And they come for free as downloadables with these two Star Wars PlayStation 4 bundles. That's amazing. Now, the big piece of news that came out today was something that I was really hoping for in case it changes my mind on buying these PlayStation 4s. It turns out that all four of these games are going to be made available as separate downloads and purchases on PSN. No word if it's going to come to Xbox One. It probably wouldn't come to Wii U because Battlefront isn't coming to... Well, actually, Disney Infinity is coming to Wii U, so maybe it shows up on the Nintendo Network. But it feels like these four games are meant to be exclusive to PSN and to Sony. So regardless of what's happening there, all I care about is that these games are being made available. So if I decide not to plunk down an extra $400 on a second PlayStation 4, I will definitely be purchasing... Well, I'm sorry, I paused for a minute. I'm kind of thinking, I think I would still probably purchase them all just because, but most importantly, Star Wars Bounty Hunter. That's the first thing I'm buying. I wish that these games were being released on a physical disc, but you've heard me complain about that, and this is the kind of thing where I'm not as worried about it. I just love that that game is being remembered. Star Wars Bounty Hunter. It's being brought back for this generation. The fact that they're touching up the visuals and adding some new stuff, I guess, or whatever they're doing, so exciting, and I'm so glad that they're releasing it separately, so maybe I just buy each one for $10. I would pay so much more than just $10 or $15 for Star Wars Bounty Hunter. It's crazy. And I'm really glad that this game was remembered. All of these games were remembered at being released. I do want to give a very special shout out to Lucasfilm and to EA for being really smart with the games that they're releasing. I really like that in the midst of the new trilogy coming up, beginning soon in December with Episode 7, The Force Awakens, which of course we know is a direct sequel to the original trilogy. I like that they're releasing 3 games that are set during the prequel era, that were prequel era games, with Racer Revenge, Jedi Starfighter, and Bounty Hunter. They both touch on The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. And I think that's awesome. I mean, I'm loving all the original trilogy love as we get into the feel of the original trilogy going into the new trilogy. But I'm film-wise, I'm hoping the new trilogy borrows elements from both, and they've basically said that it will, which would make the most sense. But obviously, it's a sequel to Return of the Jedi, so it should feel more like that than it should the prequels. However, I like seeing these prequel-era games coming out around the same time to celebrate this resurgence in Star Wars that we're happening. It's great that it's happening in the gaming space. These PlayStation 4s are gorgeous. All the Darth Vader love you could possibly want in the world. Celebrating the release of an amazing-looking game, Star Wars Battlefront 3. Amazing things happening. So what I want to leave you guys with today is the knowledge of these 4 titles, that they are going to be made available for purchase and download separate from these bundles, and most importantly, if you're a Star Wars fan, please do yourself a favor and pick up Star Wars Bounty Hunter. You must play that game. It's hard as shit once you get a couple hours into it, but it's so effing good because Jango Fett, the end. That's all you need to hear, Jango Fett. So, I'm going to leave it with that. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Really exciting to be able to talk about Star Wars, the films, the video games, the PlayStation 4, Darth Vader, Jango Fett, Bounty Hunter, all these great things. Really exciting time if you can't tell. So those are my thoughts there. I just wanted to share the cool news that these are made available as separate downloadable purchases. No price or date yet for them, but I'm sure we'll get that stuff pretty soon. So thanks as always for tuning in. You guys are awesome for being fans. And this is Rob of Rule of 2 Review. I'll catch you guys next time on another video.